Today's video is brought to you by E.Cade and Mammoth Headwear. Find a store or hat that fits you today. Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a brand new deck that I've been working on for GOAT format. So this deck is extremely experimental yet. I don't really think that there's like lists of very similar decks. There are somewhat similar decks as far as hand control decks, but this is basically going to be a hand control / grave control deck. I'm still not really sure what to call it. I still just basically regard it as hand control, but we do play one spicy card in here to deal with our opponent's graveyard after we pitch all of the cards out of their hand. So this is going to be a really cool one. I hope you guys enjoy this. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any sort of ideas on how to make this better. Like I said, this is just sort of what I've been working with now, and the deck will obviously evolve over time as I sort of experiment a little bit more, but I was kind of at a standstill where I couldn't think of anything else to change, so this is what I've come to. So we're playing one copy of Spirit Reaper in the main deck. I do still like playing the one copy of Spirit Reaper, but I don't want to play multiples because he still just is a little bit slow and he can't topple over things. And this is a really cool deck that I feel like I've built because this plays, like I said, hand control, grave control, and it's just beat down, so it's really, really cool, which is why Spirit Reaper's only at 1. And for our graveyard control and our beatdown card, we're playing 3 copies of Kaiko the Ghost Destroyer. So the reason why we're playing this is because we are discarding so many cards out of our opponent's hand. If they are on a Chaos deck or something else that's graveyard reliant, well, obviously it's not good to be setting up their graveyard, so that's where Kaiko comes in, and this card is just insane. You can basically run over anything that's a normal summonable monster. The only thing is, like, if your opponent has a breaker and they still have the counter on it, and, you know, a few other various cards. But in general, Kaiko can just go over everything else, like a Tribe Infecting Virus, Breaker, after it's used its counter, all that good stuff. And then you get to banish 2 cards out of the graveyard. You can banish spells if they're playing Magician of Faiths, or you can just banish light and dark monsters if they're on Chaos decks. It's just so good. Banishing also Sinister Serpents is also just amazing. We're then playing 1 copy of Breaker ourselves. You know, just being able to get rid of a spell or trap on the field is great. And again, he's just a beater to beat over things. 1 copy of Sangan to be able to search a couple of our guys. 1 copy of Wall of Illusion. This is just a nice card, very annoying card to play against, because this is going to make it so that anything your opponent attacks you with is going to get bounced up to the hand. And so a lot of the time what happens is that you have this on the field, set face down. Your opponent's going to attack into it and not realize that it's an 1850 body. They're going to take a little bit of damage, and their monster's going to get bounced up, and then they have to summon another monster with more than 1900 attack, or with 1900 or more, or whatever, and then they have to beat over this guy, and then that monster is then again going to get bounced up to the hand. So I kind of feel like maybe something I'll think about in the future is playing more copies of this, but for now I still like playing it at just the 1 copy. We're then playing 3 copies of Gravekeeper's Spy, just so I have another high defense monster similar to Wall of Illusion, and a card that can get me into another card that bounces stuff to the hand, which is Gravekeeper's Guard. So in general, these two, like, this engine kind of works similar to Wall of Illusion, just kind of getting me to another bounce card and whatnot. But yeah, overall, it just kind of works well. And I mean, in general, you're not going to be flipping Gravekeeper's Guard face down for that flip, for the sending back to hand. But in general, it's just still really nice having these high defense guys. Then getting on into the tribute monsters. We're not going to tribute for this guy too often, but we are playing 3 copies of Thunder Dragon just to increase the consistency of the deck. 1 copy of Thestalos. I wish I could play more. I just cut him down from 2 copies to 1, just because I was bricking a little bit too much on the tribute monsters. And in my deck theory, it seemed like Thunder Dragon was just too good to cut. And you guys will see why in a little bit here, but I think that Thunder Dragon is necessary to stay, so I didn't want to cut him out. 1 copy of Air Knight Parshath. Now, you could make the argument to just play 2 Thestalos, but for what we're going for in this deck, if your opponent's going to just start setting monsters, you know, if they have their own Spirit Reaper or something, or just anything going into defense mode, Air Knight Parshath, just the fact that you have this card in your deck is going to make a lot of pressure for your opponent. So if they see it in the graveyard and you get your Premature Burial or they just know that it's in your hand or something like that, it's going to put a lot of pressure on them to not set stuff face down, and then that's when you can just go in with a Kaiku and do some damage and banish stuff. Then 1 copy of BLS. That's also a big reason why I like Thunder Dragon's in here. So I have, these are my only 4 light targets, is Air Knight, Parshath, and Thunder Dragon, but this deck is so consistent that honestly, like, that works just fine. You're always going to be banishing a Thunder Dragon basically for this, and in testing, I barely had any times where BLS was bricking in my hand. Then for the draw cards, we're playing 1 copy of Pot of Greed, 1 copy of Graceful Charity, 2 copies of Upstart Goblin, and you guys are going to notice that I am not playing the other card in the Trinity, which would be Delinquent Duo. I'm not playing Duo because with like Thestalos, Spirit Reaper, and one of the spicy trap cards you guys are going to see, we have so many ways of discarding out of our opponent's hand that Delinquent Duo is just not necessary. That could change in the future. It is definitely necessary in other like discarding builds, so just try not to compare this deck to like other hand rip decks, but in general, I think that Delinquent Duo is just not necessary. You'd rather have other cards that are going to do stuff for you. We have 1 copy of MST, 1 copy of Heavy Storm, our 1 copy of Snatch Steal, and then also Premature Burial, so we can just bring back some good guys. Bringing back our Thestalos for a big boy, Air Knight, Parshath, or BLS is just amazing, or just bringing back Kaiku so you can do some damage. We've got our 2 copies of Nobleman of Crossout, and then unfortunately I only found 1 space for 1 copy of Book of Moon. This is to set down your Gravekeeper's Guard, or just anything else that your opponent has, so that you can beat over it with your Kaiku, or maybe your Air Knight Parshath. And now we're getting on into the spicy traps. So for our first of the spicy traps, we're playing 3 copies of Robbin Goblin. So this card, one of my favorite cards of GOAT format. It is just such a insanely scary card because hand advantage is just such a big thing in GOAT format, and this card, if you just have like 2 guys out, this card is just insane. It's just going to rip 2 cards out of the hand. If you have let's say a Spirit Reaper and another monster, that's going to be a 3-card rip. And then with your Kaiku, the Ghost Destroyer, basically the way that these 2 cards interact, Robbin Goblin is mandatory, so you're going to go Chain Link 1 Robbin Goblin to pitch a card out of the hand, Kaiku to banish, and so Kaiku will banish the cards first, and then Robbin Goblin will discard. So your opponent's still going to have a card set up in the graveyard, but still they're going to have a pretty empty graveyard after a while. And the way that this synergizes with Gravekeeper's Spy is just insane. And then also as well with your Wall of Illusion. If your opponent goes in on turn 1, a lot of the time what I do is I'll just set a Spy and set Robbin Goblin. Your opponent goes in and they're going to attack the Spy. They're going to end up probably taking like 400 damage or something if they're attacking with a Tribe Infecting Virus or whatever it is. You know, there's a lot of 1600 attack monsters in the format. So they're going to attack and they're going to run in, and then they're going to have to discard a card for Robbin Goblin. And then on the next turn, and then you flip and the Spy is flipped, you're going to special out another copy of Spy. And then if their cards get bounced back to hand or whatever ways the opponent loses the monsters on the field, you can just put your 2 Spies into attack mode and then pitch another 2 cards out of the hand. So Spy can be really oppressive, and Wall of Illusion as well, just because of the high defense. But Spy being able to spam into 2 monsters is just amazing, because that can lead you into like 2 or maybe even 3 discards. And then our other spicy trap of the deck. This deck is just all about the traps, so we really hate Jinzo. So we're playing our 3 copies of Ordeal of a Traveler. Now, the one small bugaboo in the deck is that we are playing Thunder Dragon. So with Ordeal of a Traveler, if you guys don't know what this card does, is that when your opponent declares an attack, they basically say whether you, they pick a card in your hand and they say whether it's a monster, spell, or trap. Now, the fun thing that you can do with Thunder Dragon, and you could also play Sinister Serpent in the deck and manipulate your hand that way as well. But with Thunder Dragon, your opponent is going to know that you have a monster in the hand. What you can do is you can search down your Thunder Dragons so that you only have 1 Thunder in the hand. And then let's say that you have like 2 spells or Thunder Dragon and a spell and a trap. your opponent's going to know that you've got a monster, but if you can like manipulate your hand so that you're going to have more lopsided towards spells and or traps, then that's going to mean that your opponent's going to call monsters, and then they're going to have less likelihood of actually hitting it. So it can give your opponent a bit of a false confidence. And the amazing thing is that their effects do stack. So if you have 2 Ordeal of a Travelers on the field, it's just amazing how if you have a monster and a spell in the hand, your opponent has to get lucky on both hits when they're trying to, pick what card is in your hand. And so the amazing thing there is that, if your opponent has a 50-50 chance, then they have to do that 50-50 chance twice, which just in general doesn't happen too often. So having 2 Ordeal of a Traveler is ideal. And it's just amazing. I love that card. It's so fun. Then we have our 3 copies of Solemn Judgment, just to be able to protect our back row and just stop our opponent from anything else that they're doing. And then also 2 copies of Magic Drain. If you guys don't like Magic Drain, you can obviously just play 2 copies of Magic Jammer to essentially do the same thing. This is obviously in here to stop our opponent's Heavy Storms and MSTs from destroying our back row as well. Same as Solemn Judgment. But the thing is with Magic Drain, a lot of the time you and your opponent are going to get into a huge war of attrition with this deck. This becomes a huge resource game, and so a lot of the time your opponent maybe is going to have like a Sinister Serpent in graveyard to add back to hand, and then they're going to top deck their Heavy Storm, and then they're going to try to blow up the Heavy Storm, and then maybe just set the Sinister Serpent. Well, you're going to have Magic Drain there. Your opponent's going to have such a low hand that Magic Drain is almost always going to just knock the 1 card out of the hand. And if they don't, Go format has so many power spells in the format that if they do activate a Heavy Storm and it's they do have like a card to discard, they're going to be discarding, a Noble Man of Crossout, or a, God forbid, if they discard like a Pot of Greed or a Graceful Charity, whatever. In general, they're probably going to have a spell that they don't want to lose, so you're still going to make them go a little bit even on card advantage there. Then for our last card in the deck, we have 1 copy of Mirror Force. Obviously, it's a great card to play, so there's no reason not to play Mirror Force, especially if you can't get to your Ordeal of a Traveler in time. Mirror Force is going to be there to protect you. I'm not playing the other traditional cards like Tribute to the Doomed or Ring of Destruction and stuff like that, just because those cards kind of play against what we're doing. If our opponent is if we're playing against our opponent correctly, they should continuously be bouncing their cards to their hand with Ordeal of a Traveler, which means that they're not going to have a huge board on a huge board presence for us to use Tribute to the Doomed on. We're hoping to have more of the board presence, so in general, there's no reason to have Torrential Tribute and all that kind of stuff in the deck. For a quick side deck, I am playing 1 copy of Morphing Jar. This is just an interesting way to like speed up the deck, and then as long as you get into the cards that help you to discard out of your opponent's hand, you can sort of like mitigate the fact that your opponent just drew 5 cards. We are playing our 2 extra copies of Book of Moon, especially in case we're going against a Jinzo deck. 3 copies of Skill Drain, because we really don't care much about our monster effects. It's really what's going on with these 2 traps. So if we can get Skill Drain on the field along with Ordeal of a Traveler and Robbin Goblin, then that just means that our opponent really won't have anything going for them. 3 copies of Light of Intervention. This is in case you're going up against a Pac-Man deck or anything that just sets a lot of monsters. And then we can side out our copies of Noble Man of Crossout, and then our Gravekeeper cards, and then maybe Book of Moon as well. So I'll kind of go over here quickly what I do then. So we have our 3 Light of Intervention, and then you can pick whatever you want out of here. We have DD Warrior Lady, Spirit Reaper, Wall of Illusion, so just kind of duplicating those cards, and then 1 copy of Dawn Zalug, just so you can get like really aggressive on your opponent. You're going to know what everything is on the field if you have Light of Intervention out. Everything's going to be in face-up defense position. So that kind of works out really well. And then lastly, just 2 copies of Dust Tornado in case you're going up against a really back row heavy deck. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This one's pretty cool. I've been loving testing with this deck. I've been putting in a lot of hours on this one, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think, if you guys have any ideas. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the side deck portion as well. I figured that was helpful for this. But anyways, until next time, I hope you guys enjoy this one. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you guys want more GOAT format and modern format content. And we'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.